Hi, today I'm going to show you how I make a variation of our sweet potato oat cookies. I'm going to add some carob powder today and see how that turns out. Very easy, simple to throw together, and super healthy. Okay, so here's what we're going to need. We're just going to need some rolled oats or quick oats, some carob powder, some cooked sweet potatoes. These ones I actually had microwaved and we just have them left over. You can also steam them in the Instapot for the purposes of this recipe, or cook them in the oven. Whatever you have left over is fine. And you could certainly use white sweet potatoes, like Japanese ones or something else like that if you prefer. Some vanilla or vanilla powder. And then I have an immersion blender, which I like using for this. You could actually probably mash it by hand, but it'll be smoother with the immersion blender. And or stick blender, sometimes it's called. Just a measuring spoon, a bowl to mix in, and obviously a spoon to mix with, and a measuring cup. I also have a parchment-lined cookie tray, which is essential if you want to keep this oil-free, which we do. So this recipe varies every time I make it, depending on how many sweet potatoes I have left over. So I'm going to actually measure what I have today to work with, and then I'll show you how I just turn that into as big a batch as it makes, sort of. But I'll kind of give you a rough idea here. When I microwave these sweet potatoes, they don't actually change drastically in terms of weight, unlike white potatoes. It's kind of weird, but they stay pretty close to their raw weight. So I'm going to just use my little kitchen scale here to measure this out. I hardly ever do this, like I don't do it when I'm doing it myself, but just to give you an idea if you've never made these. I have about the equivalent of probably 4 sweet potatoes left. Some of them are already in rounds. Okay, so it's like 1,044 grams, so just over 2 pounds basically of sweet potatoes. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my immersion blender and I'm going to completely puree these. And I'm going to actually leave the skins on. I used to always peel them off, and then my kids and husband almost prefer them with the skins on. I don't know why, but why not? More fiber, more nutrients, and easier for me. So before I do that, I'm actually going to toss in about probably, oops, this is still closed, the equivalent of 1 to even 2 tablespoons of vanilla, close to that. And I've actually not made the carob variation before, so we're going to try it today. But my kids have been liking carob lately. It was a new addition to our house. So I think they love sweet potato cookies, so we're going to try this. I'm going to start, this is about the equivalent of like half a batch, maybe a little more, of our sweet potato cookies that I usually make. I think I'm going to go with like 2.5 tablespoons of carob. And we'll see how this turns out. And you can obviously just experiment with this and do it to taste. It's a super forgiving recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and use my immersion blender just to smooth this out. I'll show you what it looks like before I add the oats. Okay, we're all pureed up. It's pretty thick, I guess, because of the carob powder. Like I said, I haven't made this specific variation before. Usually I just put cinnamon and vanilla. I mean, it's sort of like a pumpkin pie flavor. But my youngest son is here, and he just did a little taste test. Let's see. Ari, what do you think? Pretty good. You just said it kind of tastes like a Larabar. Okay. Well, let's see what happens here. Okay, so we need to add in some oats. Did you feel like, I don't know if we can stir this. This is a pretty hard one. Do you know what you could do for me? Could you go preheat the oven to 375? I forgot. 375. Okay. I try to get my kids involved in the kitchen, especially now that they're getting a little older, as often as I can. I'm going to start, sorry, I'm not explaining. I'm going to start with about 3 cups of oats. I think this is a little bit more like a 2/3 size batch compared to what I usually make. So, and the batter's already pretty thick. That might have even been a little too much oats, hopefully not.
Done.
Uh-oh. I might have added too many oats. Oh well. Yeah, that was probably too much. So probably 2 cups, because this is a really thick batter this time. Thick sweet potato. And I'm usually better with this. I usually use a bigger bowl, because otherwise you deal with what I am right now, which is like trying to keep it from dumping out. So I usually use a gigantic bowl. It's coming. It's coming. So this is probably a little thicker than I would like, because again, I probably overdid the oats just a little, but it's still going to work. Like I said, it's a super forgiving recipe. And as I'm getting down to the oats, again, I probably should have used a bigger bowl. I guess I thought this was fewer sweet potatoes than it actually is. Oh, there we go. It's actually getting pretty moistened. It's just thick. A lot to add in. So I'm going to finish stirring this. And then what I'm going to do is drop it by spoonfuls onto my parchment
splat
line. I know, I'm making a mess. Parchment lined pan. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like. Actually, it's looking about right. I guess it's just pretty hard to stir this batch because of the carob. So it's about like that. Again, super forgiving. Doesn't matter too much. If you have a little extra sweet potato, it might just take longer to cook. But as long as you have a good amount of oats, it's going to stick together just fine. So I'm going to drop these by heaping tablespoonfuls sort of onto my parchment lined tray, and then I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. So Ari's actually scooping the cookies for us, making them into nice little patties. I think I'm going to go get another tray ready. All right, so in order to fit it on one tray, we have monster cookies. They're gigantic. Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You can make them small, you can make them bigger. You just adjust baking times as needed. So these will likely take, I would guess, around 17 minutes at 375 in my oven, which I actually think it's not really 375. It's like it's a little cooler than that probably. I have never taken an oven temperature to it, but anyway, I'll probably try 17 minutes and see how they look. They should be a little bit brown on the bottom, which I can see if I just lift the cookie up. And I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Okay, so these ended up taking, I cooked them for about 25 minutes actually. Again, this is like not a totally typical batch for me, but so I went by when it kind of easily came off the tray. They will firm up even a little bit more. I probably could have done them a little less and they would have still hung together. My boys tend to like them on the very soft side. Whereas my husband and I would prefer them crunchier, but mostly my kids will probably eat these. So we'll go like that and just leave them. And what I'm going to do is just lift them. Actually, they're still really hot, so I'm just going to take my oven mitt here. And I always do this to cool them faster because I already have an eager taste tester lingering like an animal on the prowl. He's waiting for the fresh cookies. So they do need to cool quickly. So what I do is I put them on the cooling rack so that, and I'll actually, in a second, maybe I can even do it now. I just slide the cookie tray out because it helps them to cool even faster if they're just on the parchment. And you see also how beautifully parchment works. Like, I mean, it just completely comes off. No oil, no need for oil, no need for fats, added fats of any kind. And that's really important in our house because my husband has a family history of really bad heart disease. His one grandpa had a quintuple bypass. His other grandpa had a quadruple bypass. So we are fighting that trend and hoping to avoid every inch of it. So we do not cook with oil in our home. And us adults don't have any added fats. For my kids, I add a little bit here and there. Definitely flaxseed every day and stuff like that. But my kids eat fat, but added fats, I should say, nuts and seeds. But my husband and I avoid them. So anyway, we'll see what they taste like when they cool. Okay, we think they're cool enough for a taste test. You're gonna pick one. Ari here. This is my youngest. He's 7. Like I said, this is a new variation on the sweet potato.
And very good.
Is it very good? Great. Well, we have another one to add to our rotation. We have so many variations of this recipe. What I love about this, for if you're truly on Esselstyn, following for disease reversal, Dr. Esselstyn's plan, it doesn't rely on fruit as a sweetener. It's all starch, so it's a really handy sweet treat. Also, they freeze absolutely beautifully. So what I'll do is whatever's left of these, although I don't know that there'll be much after a couple days if I allow my boys free reign with them, is I just store, these are jumbo ones, so probably I'll only put 3 in a bag, 3 in these little bags, and then I store the rest inside, or I store, these bags that are filled inside the gallon size bag. And then we either put those in the fridge or in the freezer, and the boys can just easily grab snacks. If I didn't mention, I homeschool them, so we're home all day and they just help themselves to all the healthy food in our house because that's all we have. We only have healthy food that's good for our bodies and so tasty. Hey, Ari? We eat so much tasty food. We all love it. All right, so we hope everyone found this recipe useful and helpful, and that it gives you some ideas of how to adapt this recipe for your own tastes and your own needs. And if you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing and leaving a comment if there's variations of this recipe that you've already tried.